I'm just down here in front of this little tienda here, and I got myself a Coca-Cola. As I said, no, I'm not sponsored by Coke. It's just what's down here. I was out riding the bike around town, had some service done on my Peak Electric, and thank you all. Appreciate your support and your kind words. Hello to everybody. There's a lot of comments. I'm trying to read them all, but I'm not. Jose, hello. Other Jose, hello. And News Now, Oregon, shout out to all our cop filmers. You know, it's funny, I was just filming some cops. I was up in, what was the name of it? I forget the name of it, but it was another town in Estado de Querétaro. And I was cruising around this town, kind of an afternoon drive with my wife, and there were these cops, and I saw them with somebody stopped. They were arresting someone, and I'm like, oh, hi babe, there's my girl. They were arresting someone, and I'm like, well, this sucks. Let's see what's going on. So I just did a little casual cop watching, right? And maybe I'll post that video because it was kind of interesting, you know, as we see people doing auditing or cop watching or whatever you want to call it up in the States, you know, and the cops are always aggressive and they're freaking out. These guys were arresting someone in a drug bust, right? And it was just on a street corner. There was a bunch of people standing around just observing them, you know? And it was weird because it was so natural. It wasn't like a bunch of people ran over to make sure they weren't beating someone up. I mean, it was just like the people were there and they were observing and interacting. And I walked up, you know, like maybe 30 feet away, which, you know, you get about 50 feet away in the States and cops start freaking out. So next thing, I walk up like right next to them, right next to their car. And I'm just standing there with my camera running. I didn't even say anything. I mean, my Spanish is still pretty weak. And I didn't talk to the cops. I just stood there and watched, didn't know what was going on, didn't try and get into it with them. Just made sure they weren't abusing the guy. You know, they must have arrested him. It was just counties. There was the state police there and there was the counties there. And the state police just left, right? You know, in the States you have, especially if it's drugs or something, right? You'll have 50 guys show up and they act like they're saving the world and they're heroes, right? And here, like, a few guys showed up, the state cops left, and the county guys, you know, they just put this guy, they had this guy sit down in a chair in the back of a pickup truck and off they went. So I walked up to the guys, I think it was the corner, so there was a bus stop there. Walked up to all the guys that had just been sitting right there. Cops didn't say anything. Even when they were getting in the car, I picked up the camera and I pointed it straight at them, so there was no doubt of what was going on, right? They didn't say a word. They just got in and they left, you know, they did their thing. And I went up to the guys that were sitting there and I said, why did they arrest him? Except for I said it way more like a 2-year-old than that because I was trying to remember the word for arrest and make them understand me. But hey, everybody. So I'm like, why did they arrest him? And they said, for drugs. And I said, the drug war is stupid, as I turned to walk away. And they just kind of all chuckled and said, yeah. And interestingly enough, in Mexico, there's the outcry against the drug war is turning the other way. Marijuana is being made legal-ish, you know, as legal as in the States, still regulated, you know, but still, but allowed, right? And basically now the president of Mexico, we'll see what comes of this, but the president of Mexico recently told the USA, hey, we don't want your Meritive Initiative money anymore for the drug war. The drug war is a failure. We want to stop doing the drug war. We want to stop enforcing the drug war. And we want to use that, you know, I think the idea is that we want the money for humanitarian purposes, but we're not willing to use it for the drug war anymore. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting because there's a strong pushback to the drug war down here. So yeah, I'm in Mexico and it's very different. And the police are still the police, right? Thugs always are drawn to power and controlling people. And you see that here in cops too, but you don't see cops beating people on the side of the road. Like, I'm getting to the point where I don't even really worry about that because it's not even a consideration for a cop to behave that way down here. It's not even really how you think. Whereas in the States, it's like, oh, maybe I should stop because a cop might kill this guy. They're that psycho. Remember, police kill 3 to 5 people in the US every day on the street, openly, documentable, right? I can't find 3 to 5, more than about 3 or 5 people in a year that police kill like that in Mexico. And when they do, they usually get charged with murder, honestly. So it's a very different culture. What people tolerate is very different. They know that if they push the people too far, they won't just talk like the fake traits of the USA and say, look, we got our guns. the government here knows that the people, if they push them too far, will actually do something. They will start tearing down buildings. They will drag politicians out into the street. So it's not to say that it's perfect, right? I was talking to a Mexican earlier at the bike shop, and I said, en Estados Unidos todo es illegal, pero en Mexico, medio es illegal. And in essence, if you didn't get that, in the United States, everything's illegal. In Mexico, only half of everything's illegal. And honestly, maybe less than that. Maybe I'm being too... it's funny because if you read about Mexico, right? If you read about Mexico, from gringos' perspective, they're like, oh, there's tons of regulations, there's tons of bureaucracy. If you want to do anything, if you want to open a shop, there's all these rules. And the Mexicanos just laugh at that. They're like, well, why would we get permission from government? Sure, there's a regulation, but we just ignore that. And that's the difference here is it's not illegal. You don't get in, it's not a felony to ignore a dumb law here. And there's a huge difference because in the States, everything's enforced at the point of a gun, right down to the traffic ticket. No en Mexico, no. So, buenas tardes. Just people passing by. I'll show you the street I'm sitting on here. And it's cool. There's just some cool graffiti over there. There's some graffiti down here on the walls. There's this graffiti over here. It says, "Graffiti is my life." This isn't just paint; it's a sediment. And it's kind of funny down in this part of town. There's somebody doing a lot of graffiti on the walls. So anyway, it's cool. This is kind of just a general thought, right? I'm in Mexico. Things are different, and I keep trying to show you guys that. I went to Colombia. And I just finished finally both parts of the Colombia videos. Make sure you watch that. Watch the video of the Matones, the thugs that I dealt with down in Mexico State who were trying to extort me. Did you guys see that video? Just posted that, I think, earlier this week. Pretty interesting because it shows the shadier side, right? Yeah, there's still bad things going on. The difference is in the U.S., there's a monopoly on force. The little teenagers don't try and extort you because the cops won't allow that. They'll only allow extortioners that work in their system, and that system is perfected. And if you refuse the extortion in the States, you go to prison or you go to the ground. And so there's just a huge difference, and I always see people saying, oh, Mexico's a third world country. No, actually the USA is a third world country, and people are getting upset because I say that. But the fact is you can measure a place. You can measure a nation, I think, by how many of its people are in prison, how many of its people its government kills. And there's no contest, guys. I mean, the prison population per capita down here is like a quarter, and if they would end this stupid drug war, which is being talked about pretty heavily, it's going to drop substantially. So a third world country is not based, it's not measured by how nice your parks are and how much debt you have. And the problem is we're being bribed in the US. You know, we say, oh, look how great we are, look how wonderful we are. In the USA, civilization is measured by how many nice things you have, right? If you measure a civilized society by justice, by fairness, by honor, by loving your neighbor, by honorable courts, by honorable due process, by not tolerating corruption and abuse of your fellow man. That's a civilized society. But what I've noticed, también en Mexico, okay, I've noticed that the more a state, the more a place, the more a country calls themselves civilized, the less civilized they are. For example, I'm in Estado de Querétaro right now, all right? Look at this guy hauling his cows through this teeny tiny road here. They'll get it there. So, Estado de Querétaro is probably one of the most regulated states, right? So, for example, I make this example to the locals when I'm talking about how stupid government is. I'm like, the government is working together with these corporations in San Juan del Rio, and they're polluting the San Juan River and making it smell like sewage. It's ridiculous because that water system is affecting millions of people, and that river could be beautiful. And then, yeah, I think we do know him. And then that same government who's polluting that river comes back and says, oh, well, we're gonna ban plastic bags because that's what all the cool people are doing, right? We're gonna ban plastic bags. Now, of course, this is Mexico, like I said, right? So most people are ignoring this ban in their own way, right? They're like, oh, do you want a plastic bag? I've seen like some people like, oh, do you want a straw or a plastic bag? Because like California's doing this. I think Washington's working on doing this now. So there's this push, right? All the big governments want to push people to ban plastic stuff. So you'll see this in some areas, and they'll try and make this ban. The difference is that in the States, if you don't follow these bans, they'll shut your business down, they'll go to jail, They'll shoot you if they need to. Whereas here, Mexicanos are experts at ignoring stupid laws. But my point is, Querétaro is a really nice state. For gringos, you drive around Querétaro and you think, oh, this is civilized, it's pretty. Look at Querétaro City. They have nice malls. They have a Costco, right? All this stuff. And so it's kind of European. It's kind of Spanish, right? It's been pretty peaceful for a pretty long time. And it's got quite a bit of money as states go here. It's one of the wealthier states. And so it thinks of itself, and this is what I'm like, people say, well, do you like Querétaro? I'm like, yeah, it's very nice, but they kind of got their nose up in the air. They think they're civilized. The person who thinks he's civilized usually isn't. Being civilized has nothing to do with how many rules you have, how many regulations, how many government programs, how many police and officials. It has nothing to do with those things. Being civilized has to do with how you have justice, how you love your neighbor, how you do right to your fellow man. That's being civilized. And so you see those same problems of pretend civilization from government coming no matter where you go, even down here. But what's interesting is, even in Estado de Querétaro, right, I talk about some stupid rules they make up, and yet at the same time, there's probably 2-3 times, I don't know how you quantify that, but there's vastly more freedom in Estado de Querétaro than any state in the USA. I mean, it makes Texas looks like a slave camp, right? And so there's vastly more freedom here, even though this is probably one of the more, nose up in the air, we're civilized, we have government and rules to keep order kind of states, right? They still don't worship the cops. They still don't run around saying, oh, everything is wonderful, the government can do no wrong, because Mexicanos have not been brainwashed to that level, and that's a really important thing to understand. So really, no matter where you go in Mexico, you're going to find different cultures. Some are more native, because remember, the key thing about Mexico, the invaders, right? In the USA, the invaders come and we conquer the natives and abused and genocided the natives and committed our abuses. That doesn't mean that none of the founding intent of the USA was good, that the Constitution didn't have good intent, that some of our founding fathers didn't. But in the end, we invaded and abused other people as a whole, as a country, particularly with what we did to the natives. In Mexico, you have to remember, and this is super important, in Mexico, the natives rose up and they kicked out the Spanish, right? There's still a lot of Spanish here. There's still a lot of Spanish culture here. But the natives cast off the Spanish like we cast off the British, right? So we cast off the British and then abused the natives. In Mexico, they didn't have the colonists. The Spanish invaded Mexico, tried to control them, and eventually the natives kicked them out. And then you had this mix of Spanish culture, because the Spanish had a huge influence here, of course, and there were still lots of Spanish people that stayed. It wasn't like the natives just turned and killed all the Spanish when they threw them out. It wasn't like that. And so, I mean, this is like super brief overview of history, right? But, buenas tardes. But it's an important distinction, and most people don't realize one of the reasons that culture is so different, because the invaders essentially won in the USA. They didn't here. Now, is government still corrupt? Of course. We don't need to get started on that. Like, I talk to people all the time. I'm like, the politicians are the same no matter where you go in the world. It's the same kind of loser that wants to control his fellow man. So, just some thoughts. Hope you guys can hear me okay. I'm trying to block the wind here as I sit here. And it's interesting. This part, and even Colombia, again, way more freedom, way more personal freedom. And most of Latin America, you'll see this because the culture, people say, well, I don't want to learn Spanish. Do it. Because that difference in language, we've created a barrier with illegal walls and unconstitutional immigration restrictions and all this stuff. But because there is that language difference, it goes along with their different culture. Hola. I was getting a Coke and I'm talking to my friends on YouTube. How are you doing?
Very good. I live in there.
You live here? Was it?
This brown
Oh, okay.
gate.
Is that your trailer that just went by?
See?
You parked that in here?
See?
You guys can fit a car anywhere. Say hello to my friends in Estados Unidos.
Hello, how are you? Hi, Ben.
Él habla mucho English.
Yes, little bit.
Yeah, he's good. Hey, good to see you, my friend.
Okay.
We'll see you soon.
See you later. Good night.
We'll see you soon. Have a good night. So anyway, that was our horse friend. He lives in town here, and he sold us a horse, and then sometimes he borrows the horse to go work with animals and stuff, and that's fine with me. So yeah, anyways, where was I? Just this general topic. I don't want to go too long. I just know that sometimes it's fun to get in here and just chat and show you guys what's happening on the street and just kind of the culture and talk about that. What else? That language. Because of that language, it's hard to describe. Because the language is different, right? You come down here, on the one hand, you're like, oh, I hope someone speaks English because it'll make my life easier. But I'm feeling more and more empowered the more I can speak Spanish, because they have their own culture. They're not so affected by our fake news. In fact, oftentimes, you know, the wannabe American gringos, I mean, Mexicanos that have lived in the U.S. and they want to be like us and they speak English, right? They're the ones, sometimes they're the worst about believing in corruption and rules and regulations, because they speak English and they've learned from our propaganda and stuff, and they believe in it, right? If, in a way, even though I want people to speak English, sometimes I feel like when they don't, I can trust them more because they're the real deal, right? Not that I don't have people, you know, like this I get along with that speak English. It's wonderful for us when people speak English. But what I'm trying to convey is their culture here is completely different. And what damages their culture is when they buy into our bribes and propaganda and try to make Mexico like the USA. The last thing you want Mexico to be like is like the USA. It's not a working deal. It's not a working deal. That's what we want to escape. So it's fascinating. And I've been to probably 12 different states down here. Thanks, Miggy. Been to probably 12 different states down here, and every one of them is unique in their own way. They have much more distinct culture between the states than our states do, and much more, there's just so much character, right? Whereas we kind of have this homogenous, because of our overbearing federal government and controls, the United States has kind of become homogenous. Most of our states don't really have an identity. You know, states like Texas pretend they do, but really they do exactly what the police and the government tells them. Whereas down here, there's distinctly different foods in different states, and different cultures, different historical references, all that kind of stuff down here. And there's just so much different culture. So you owe it to yourself. Thanks, Miggy. You owe it to yourself to come down here and just experience what a little bit of freedom looks like. Not perfected freedom. You know, I don't know if there's anywhere in the world that has true freedom. There's always going to be a corrupt politician trying to destroy you, but or I shouldn't say trying to destroy you, that's going to vary. Trying to take something from you, trying to extort you. But you know what? There's a whole lot more down here. Okay, before I wrap up today, guys, any questions? Thanks, David, appreciate it. Thanks for the shout outs. And all you guys, Instinto de pescador. Does that mean you instinctively fish? Cody English. All you guys, good to see you guys. If anybody has any questions before we wrap up, I'll try and answer a question or two. But just wanted to do a quick video from the streets. I'll trim this up a little bit later, cut off that first part where I was waiting for all you guys to show up. What's for dinner tonight? I don't know, but if I don't like what's at home that our cook made for us, I'll just go get a taco. But no, I'm sure it'll be good. Durango. Yeah, I'm familiar with Durango. I think I bypassed Durango when I went to that area, but I do want to visit Durango. It's very nice. And let's see, what else? How much should I pay for a horse? Hold on, a horse was, I think I paid about $800 for a good horse. And you won't find horses cheap down here. I don't know that they're more than in the U.S., but in the U.S. you probably could find a lot more horses that are, adoptable and things like that, because people don't want to feed them. Whereas here they're used, right? They're used. People ride them on the streets. They're used for work. They're used for transportation. Sure, the people have cars too, but you'll find a lot more people. It's very common to just see horses tied up on the street corner and somebody's in the grocery store. You know, it's still pretty common down here because the towns are small, the streets are small. It's like me riding my bike right now. It's just easy to get around in the little puebla like that. So it's cool. What else? Just looking at your comments, guys, seeing if there's any interesting questions we should throw out there. before I wrap it up. I want to keep this one under 20. I was going to keep it under 20. I guess I'm going to have to say under 25 minutes. Would it be better to own a horse or an ATV? I don't know. I would say the preferred method of everyday transportation that's budget-minded is a moto, which is a motorcycle. You can buy a brand new Italika 150 for about $800 US. A used one, of course, is less, but that's a brand new motorcycle that you just take it and ride it on the street. You don't even really need a license, or, I mean, you can register it and get a license, and you're probably supposed to, but if you don't, no one really cares, and people just go about. I mean, you see kids driving motorcycles. Ditto for quads. Quads are a little more expensive. What else? Yeah, I would say if I had to choose one mode as an individual, probably would. I need a car for my family, right? But as an individual, if you just wanted to run around from town to town, enjoy Mako, $800, buy you a brand new motorcycle, and you don't have much to worry about. It's pretty cool, and it's easy way to get around. And yeah, the ATVs are definitely right on the roads. Legal. See, again, we're back to this thing of people say, well, here's the problem. Gringos come to Mako, and they go to the government and they say, hey, I want to do this. What do I need to do? And the government's like, oh, es muy difícil. Necesito esta papela, y este permite. If you go and ask government, do you want me to do something for you? Like, I just want to know if you want to extort me for anything. Of course they're going to say yes. The thing is, in Mako, people don't ask. So I don't even know whether legally you can ride the ATV on the street, because everyone does it, right? It's completely normal. I will see entire families on a single motorcycle, guys. You will see dad driving a motorcycle. We're talking a 150 here. You'll see dad on the front of a motorcycle, 2 kids sandwiched in between mom, and there's 4 people on this squatty little motorcycle cruising down the road. And this is just the norm, right? You'll see 3 or 4 teenage kids racing around town on their quad. And I mean, the motorcycles a lot of times have a plate. I don't know if the quads do or not, but see, it's hard to convey, I think, because we're so used to being absolutely enslaved. You do exactly what government says, or they will take you to jail. You have all the permits, you have all the papers, right? In the USA, think about this. The USA is a nation that calls itself free, but it's a nation where it's commonplace. I posted this earlier. The USA is a nation where it's commonplace for an armed thug to stop you on the road at gunpoint, take your car, put you in jail, and steal your car because you didn't have papers from them giving you permission to use it, okay? That's how crazy it is. That's how crazy the USA is. That's not how people think here. Is there a rule that you're supposed to have a license plate? Yes. But when I got a new car, I actually tested that. I drove around Querétaro State, which, as I said, is one of the states that is more regulated even than some other states, than probably most other states, honestly, in Mako. I drove around for like 5 months with no plates just to see what would happen. Nobody even questioned it. Now, eventually, would somebody have stopped me and said, hey, why don't you have plates? Maybe. But it was kind of an experiment, right? I had the plates. Finally, I put them on because I was going to Mako City, and I'm like, I don't want to deal with them there. They can be more cranky there. It's a big city the size of New York, bigger than New York, actually. And so I think I put 1 plate on. That way, I have an extra one. So it's hard to describe because there's a huge difference. In the USA, people say, oh, this is a law, you have to do it. That's not how people think here. People are like, oh, I think there's a rule about that, but no, it's fine, just ignore it and do your thing, right? That's how most the normal Mexicanos think. The ones that are trying to be gringos, maybe not. They might be like, oh no, follow all the rules. But no, don't follow rules that are enslaving you. They have no bearing in reality or freedom. So, all right, guys, despite a few trolls in here throwing out their threats and malpalabras, we've got I think a good topic, and I hope I shared some thoughts with you guys. If you guys want more Q&As and talking about Mako, I know I haven't been doing as many of these lately. I've been trying to improve the vlogs. So check out the latest videos, the latest Exile show videos. You guys will enjoy them. Share the channel, spread it. Check out the new apparel. There's links in here on the video somewhere. Over the new Keep Your Cops, I'd rather call a crackhead shirts are now in the store there. I think you guys will enjoy them. I'd like to see some photos. I know some of you are receiving those about now because they just came out a couple weeks ago. I've tried gorditas. I do like gorditas, but I think I prefer tacos overall. I think I'm gonna get home, go check on the fam, and we will go from there. But thanks to all you guys. Thanks to the trolls for exposing yourself so I can block you as rapidly as possible and we can keep a good conversation going here. And you guys, I'm just giving another quick look around before we wrap up here. Yep, there we are. Normal, everyday streets, people doing their thing. That's how it is. Everybody just being Megan. All right, guys. I'll do some more Q&A. We can talk about it. I saw some questions about the schools. We can talk about that as well in another video. Bring that one up again. I do know a little bit about that and other things that you want to ask. So if you want more of these, let me know and we'll do more of them. But for now, I'm going to go get some dinner. All right, peace out.